Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the new episode of the In Production podcast. Today we have an amazing guest, Somesh. Please tell us more about yourself and why should people listen?
I'm Somesh Mohapatra, PhD in Artificial Intelligence and Craft Theory from MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Technology. And while I was there, I did an MBA in Operations and Entrepreneurship. My career is split into three distinct parts, if you think about it. I started in the startup ecosystem. I launched my own company, scaled it, and then quit that to come into a deep research mode, doing the PhD, working at Google, and actually learning the tools, keeping my hands dirty. And then, as some might have expected that I go back to the startup ecosystem, I did not. I went into enterprise. I went into a company called Caterpillar to start learning how enterprises work. What are the structures? What are the systems? So in this three-part career with a PhD, MBA, and an engineering background, I have been dabbling around AI ever since we had to write machine learning in Caffe and Theano. And agents did not exist as they are today. So when I look at the vibe coding era, it's mind-blowing. And
It
I
is.
still code actively. My GitHub repo in its private side has a lot of commits even today. So, and honestly, I'm super proud of that.
This is a very nice thing because you're very close where the AI and where the innovation is being born. That's why your experience is so valuable and your opinions are valuable because you have seen the way that AI was evolving from three different angles. You're doing it right now, so you have a good understanding where AI is right now. And I'm sure you have a good theories or understanding or long-term trends where AI is going to go. So that's what we're going to dive deep into in this conversation. And I would love to start with your PhD. So, a lot of people, most of the people who have a PhD from MIT and get featured in the Jensen's Huang keynote are telling a story that AI is powerful, technology is powerful, is bringing us the future of tomorrow. But when you're writing posts on LinkedIn, you tell a different story. You tell the story how the technology keeps running into something that it can't really solve. So throughout your career, throughout your time, what did you discover about AI that actually cannot do, that changed the way that you think about the world, about technology, about the pace of innovation that AI can bring to us?
That's a pretty interesting question. To give some context here, my LinkedIn posts follow a certain series. One that I do on the human loop, which is talking about what is that intermesh with the humans and the AI tools that we are building, or the models or the agents. And then there's the lab series, which talks about like hardcore research that was released in the same week or earlier that month, like pretty much front end tip of the spear. When you ask the question about what can AI not do, my straightforward answer will be AI cannot automate a secret.
Okay.
Because AI is exceptional at reasoning through defined parameters. When you have the data, structured, unstructured does not matter. But if there are things that are unwritten, like do not put your hand inside the microwave oven when it is running, yeah, please don't do that. That's common sense. But if the model does not know that, does not understand the guardrails around it, does not understand the safety issues, then it does not know. Like, "Oh, I can break the glass, go in and pick up the plate because I was told 10 seconds and this was 30 seconds and my 10 seconds are up." The realization hit that throwing massive compute and trillion parameter models at a problem is useless if the underlying human intuition driving the decisions is not explicitly mapped out. So
100%.
AI cannot automate a secret.
I 100% agree with you here. That's what we do. Like in most of my professional time, that's what we do. That's what I see on my day to day. Whenever you have technology, you can even have the context. You can even have the process map. But in the end of the day, if you do not understand how people are making decisions and why two people can make with the same amount of data, can make two different decisions, or you can't really throw an AI into it because AI will just scale something that it cannot explain. And if it cannot explain, if it cannot reason, then it's not going to be good quality. And I want to ask you the question about the process. So process layer is very important and you talk a lot about it. When was the time that you realized that, okay, we need to focus more on the processes and why?
So over the last decade or so, I have observed organizations spend millions securing the best foundational models, cleaning
Hmm.
their data lakes, only to watch deployments stall or not give the expected ROI or return on investment. Because nobody actually knew the step-by-step workflow of their core operations. So if you think about it, it is the missing SOP or the standard operating procedure.
Hmm.
It became extremely clear that the process layer is the actual track the AI runs on.
Hmm.
Without it, unsupervised agents can hallucinate, create operational chaos instead of leverage. Like if you go through Nemo Agent Toolkit that was recently released by NVIDIA and you look at the config files that are inside there,
Hmm.
it has very clear instructions on how an agent has access to which subagents and what each subagent has access to a set of very defined rules.
Hmm.
To some extent, you will say, like, isn't that deterministic? Well, the reasoning happens at the orchestration layer, and the idea is to choose what path to follow.
Hmm.
And there is obviously a deep research mode where you'd give an open access to everything to be able to use as necessary.
Hmm.
But more often than not, we have a frequently asked questions list. And that frequently asked questions on a website or the frequently asked questions for the intended usage of an AI agent or an AI assistant is going to be based on a very strict standard operating procedure documentation.
Very interesting. Do you remember, was it in your personal practice when you first hit the wall with how the SOP looks like and how people are actually doing the work on the field? Or was it, do you remember when that first happened? What kind of lesson was the first lesson that you learned when you encountered that kind of situation?
So this is pretty interesting because I'm really into credit cards and it's a personal fascination of mine. Like,
Like
how do you
points collecting
optimize
or from which angle?
points collecting? But points collection is also one piece. If you go into major credit cards, there's a benefit section which has offers.
Hmm.
You will think about if you go to an XYZ restaurant or buy from ABC shop, you get a 10% cashback. So it's almost like a coupon book. So
Hmm.
how do you optimize? How do
Hmm.
you take into consideration, like, okay, these are the offers that are existing this month, and this is where I stand, and I should be using to buy your jeans from, let's say, Levi's versus I should buy from Wrangler.
Hmm.
To me, I'm not very brand oriented, but if I have a choice and I can get a cashback, why not?
Sure.
And at that point, I was trying to design an agentic architecture system for myself that pulls in from all my credit cards that I have and all the benefits that are in there, along with offers and timelines. And very quickly, I realized that the model was missing things. Because again, to a model, when you say jeans, give me the options, it was like, yeah, clothes shops, go to, I don't know, a shop that does not sell jeans in general.
Because it just puts them in the bucket of clothing.
Exactly. So I had to start like having a reasoning layer in the beginning to actually parse these, add tags to it, and make sure that it has a very clear operating procedure that can help it reason and give me replies whenever I need it. It is now a Telegram bot that I interact with whenever I'm shopping, whenever I'm making any decisions. Hey, I'm buying a ticket to place X, let's say to Philadelphia. And do you think I should be booking on American Airlines or should I be booking on United? It has all the context of my credit cards that,
Hmm.
okay, there is possibly an offer somewhere or an American Airlines branded credit card or a United branded credit card. And it pulls in that information and it gives me that information saying that you should book on this particular airline because of so and so reasons.
So the same logic applies to professional environment, right? Whenever you do a
Absolutely.
deployment, you need to have an additional, I don't know, set of documentation that will explain this model, how to apply, how to reason, where to find information,
Absolutely.
like a decisioning framework on how to understand that it's giving you a good response.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Interesting. Did you learn this when you were in your startup days? What are the learnings that you got when you were in the startup world that are very valuable, and it's very hard to get when you are just staying in the corporate environment.
So, as a founder of a startup, you wear many hats. And when you think about those hats, you think about functions in the corporate space. There's no swim lanes, it's no designated swimming pool in general. It's like a sea, and you're trying to swim across waves and tides and everything. In a startup world, it's about learning how to survive, how to stay afloat. So, whether it's human resources in a 30 minutes call, the next call is understanding tech deployment, the third call is negotiating with a supplier,
Mhm.
fourth, working as a salesperson. You get to pick just too many different skills, too many different functions
Mhm.
with one goal. I need to optimize the revenue for my startup and make sure my employees have the best time of their lives.
It's very good and it's very refreshing because at the same time you get the chance to every day, or maybe sometimes even multiple times a day, you're changing the hat.
Absolutely.
For example, one day you're focusing on product, another day you're focusing on another thing, and that gives you a very nice holistic view of how the whole company operates from beginning to an end. And you can actually see and understand that how problem in, I don't know, product creates slowdowns in sales, and then you can connect to it because with a lot of folks that are in an enterprise environment, they're super specialized in a specific set of tasks. And what I've seen in my experience that whenever there is a big project that involves the whole company, let's say AI transformation can be one of those projects, it's very hard for people to understand the holistic view, and sometimes mistakes can happen. So, for example, they hire a consultant or somebody else, I don't know, and this consultant, even with credentials or with anything, they can give bad advice because they do not understand their business fully. And folks that are super specialized, they do not understand the bad general impact that transformation is going to create. Have you ever witnessed any bad experiments that went sideways? Anything, any main reasons why transformation in AI in the company goes bad?
To the startup days again, like transformations don't go bad overall. There are pieces that you carefully design and make sure that they are set for success. What you just put together is how do you handle an ambiguous problem?
Mhm.
Because a lot of the folks in general are trying to deal with ambiguity as they are thinking about AI deployments. And we have domain knowledge or domain specific people who understand the domain really, really well. We have supply chain experts that have worked in the space for 20 years, 30 years.
Mhm.
But when it comes to like, how do you actually use AI to help them accelerate their processes, enable them to do more or do better, create auditability? That is where it goes back to the same missing SOP.
Mm.
What is missing from this entire approach? And I think I have personally seen cases where if you have not documented processes really well, if you don't have the right requirements in, if there is a missing gap for the shared outcomes
Mhm.
and the trade offs are not explicit, then you can assume that it's going to be failing or it's not set for success from the beginning.
Interesting. Would you give us this as a general recommendation, let's say for the listener, for the viewer, their management, their leadership told them that, hey, we need AI is priority right now. And for the person that doesn't know where to start, or maybe they started doing something, but they're not fully bought in, they do not know if that's going to give any results. Would you give us a general advice that in the beginning, you should always start with a good mapping of the SOP and only then doing any kind of work transformation, things like that?
Absolutely. Means for any operations leader listening right now, and by operations, I mean like if you are in the manufacturing space, if you are in an enterprise space, who is not dealing directly with development or deployment of artificial intelligence solutions, my recommendation is always start with the map, not the machine.
Mm-hmm.
Because before buying any software or before thinking about developing an AI model, aggressively map out the inner and outer loops of a single highly critical workflow. You need to identify exactly where the data lives, what
Mm-hmm.
those decision gateways are, and this is more important than other steps, where a human must sit in the loop for final approval.
Yeah, that's very important because that builds trust.
Absolutely.
They miss on the human component. They only think
Mhm,
about the tag, they think about the processes, they think about the data, but they
mhm.
forget about buy-in across whole organization. I've been reading a McKinsey report recently, and they said that this is one of the main reasons why a lot of AI pilots or transformations die, simply because humans do not trust it. They think it's going to replace them. So they kind of are being very inefficient in the transformation.
You bring up a very interesting point because when you say about how do you work with somebody whose job feels threatened by the thing you are building,
Uh-huh.
if I understand what you mentioned,
Uh-huh.
I think that those are the cases where we need to approach the conversation from the perspective of that we are changing your role from just an operator to being the architect of that solution.
Uh-huh.
Because this is not a role transition, this is legacy building. Like if an expert in manufacturing operations has been doing it for 30 years, their role, their understanding of that particular machine, of that particular process is significantly better than any model. And it goes from manually executing a task to actively mapping the logic and defining those guardrails there.
Uh-huh.
And by making them the ultimate validators and auditors of the system, the purpose is to elevate their status from what folks would say as like replaceable workers to essential process architects.
Uh-huh.
Because without them, anything that is going to be such a big transition would never be possible.
It is like you, because the person that has been doing something for 20 years, they
Mhm.
have 20 years of context. And
Absolutely.
when you mentioned about building the SOP, when you build an SOP, it actually, to have it successfully built, you need two things. One is, of course, you need to understand, write down how the process is executed, step one, step two, what happens in between. You put the human in the loop. But the second big element, which we discussed in the first half of the podcast, was context. So AI should also have the context. So approaching the problem of getting those 20 years of context that lives in the human head and then somehow giving it to the AI is a very big enablement for the SOP to actually work the same way, for that person to produce similar, for that person to teach AI to perform on a good enough level for the person, so this mega expert can be scaled. It's not usually spoken about because it's a very hard thing to say. What other problems that you have encountered in manufacturing AI? What are usually the main problems to scale except this?
One thing that I have seen is the process, the implementation. Those are obviously challenges that you see from a product requirement standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
But then when you start thinking about it from a technical implementation standpoint, there is always a bias that I have noticed to go for the best model out there and hopefully figure out that that best model can figure out anything that is thrown at it.
Mm-hmm.
People started doing prompt engineering. There's a Python library called DSPY that does some prompt engineering to help with other models. But my guidance and my thought process that I have seen is about alignment.
Mm-hmm.
And that alignment comes from tools like Parlin.
Mm-hmm.
Parlin as a tool, again, I'm not sponsored by Parlin.
If
It's
you're
an
from
open source
Parliament,
tool.
give us a note.
But yeah, I like tools like that because it takes out the guesswork out of the agentic implementation.
Mm-hmm.
And then what happens is you don't need like a GPT-o1 or an O3 or like a big reasoning model sitting on top. You can use a 350 million parameter reasoning model or like just a tool calling model
Mm-hmm.
that takes in your prompt, understands what tools it needs, and goes for its implementation. And that becomes a big change in your implementation perspective. Suddenly, your costs go down from having a 120 or a 570 billion parameter model being hosted, or you using an API, to almost an edge AI implementation with a 350 million parameter model. And
Mm-hmm.
by this, referring to, I believe there was an implementation like this by an AWS team and there was a research article that was released in December of 2025. And the other piece that I have seen in general is the field is moving so fast that what has happened maybe a couple of months ago is already ancient history.
As you said, weeks.
I mean, see, like I was reading one of my favorite books in the space is again designing data intensive applications.
Mhm.
Martin Kleppen, his original book came back, I think in 2015, 16, around the same time I was just getting my hands dirty in the space. And the second edition came in. It's actually on my desk right now. The change that I have seen in this space over the years, it's just phenomenal. And the pace that it has gotten right now, it's massive. And if you're not keeping up with the change, if you're not keeping up with what's the latest patterns, the latest developments and models and the thought processes, there's a chance that you are implementing something that is outdated.
So let me try to summarize the Success Playbook by Somesh. So if you're doing any kind of AI pilot transformation in mind, step one should always be understand the SOP, understand the process fully and thoroughly, and get as much context as possible in terms of how humans and reasoning and decisioning, how they're avoiding SOP, what kind of workarounds they have found, why they're using them, try to understand that context fully. Step number two, instead of going and pursuing the most expensive and the best and the most powerful model in the world, try to clean up your own mess in the data that you already gathered. Because you do not need the best model hoping that it will magically understand what it needs to do. It's way better to spend your own time cleaning up your current infrastructure and everything that you have. So you can use a model that is less powerful, but it's still going to give you way better result if you're going to give it clean data, clean processes, rather than hoping that we're just going to buy the most expensive and it's going to somehow figure out because it's so much better. And then the third step is once you already have an integration or project in production, have an alignment with folks in your departments, in your teams. Why is it happening? It's not for there to replace them, it's to enable them to be an architect of the whole workflow, because their experience and their time just gives them AI ability to the amount of impact, the amount of output, the amount of things that they're able to do. And this is a positive thing. It's not about removing anybody, it's about empowering them, right?
Absolutely, Nick. You did a fantastic overview / summary of the entire discussion. I could not have done it better than that.
You laid it down very nicely. It was a pleasure. I hope that everybody that is listening to this, in case they have any follow-up questions or they want to get in touch with you, what's the best way for them to reach you?
LinkedIn is the best way, honestly, or just an email is fine at any point. My contact details are available on LinkedIn as well.
Under the episode. So if for the listeners and viewers that would like to catch up, you're a very positive, very open person. It has been a pure pleasure doing the episode. And thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you, Nick, for hosting me here. And I really hope in production, it becomes one of the best podcasts out there.
We're steaming ahead. We're gonna have a lot of episodes soon.
Sweet.